G'day, just a quick trigger warning before I start this video. This video covers some topics which may be triggering to some people. It talks about hospitalisation, talks a little bit about drug use and health conditions and that sort of thing. So just thought I'd put it out there. The viewers may find this video slightly sensitive. G'day, welcome to Wyatt's Wormhole Madness. I'm Wyatt and you are now entering the wormhole. This is Wyatt's Wars episode 3, here with Xander Pandre himself as always. He's behind the camera right now, but you'll probably see him throughout the video. This video today, we're just going to be doing a war on the health system. So we're just going to be talking about my health issues that I've had and the hospitals and the way that I've been absolutely just treated badly and have still not got any answers for several health things that have happened to me in the past. So let's head on down. We're just taking a walk to uni, but for now I'm going to rant. So let's head on, gamers. So I have been passing out basically since I hit puberty. You know, started off not so bad, probably once or twice a day, but for me that was pretty mild at that time. Then after that, it started getting worse. I would pass out 4 times or more a day. But it was just like an inconvenience. It was okay, but it was just inconvenient. One day I passed out at school. They called an ambulance because I was out for a little bit. And then I had to go to hospital because apparently passing out isn't something that happens to everyone, which I thought it was. So I go to the hospital, they start looking at my heart and they go, oh, it's probably a blood pressure thing. It could be like postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, also known as POTS. It could be a similar type tachycardia or syncope type thing. So they gave me a referral to a cardiologist and sent me home. They did a blood test, of course. I mean, that was nothing wrong with that one. That was just, they did what they should have done and gave a referral to get more answers. After that, went to see a cardiologist. The cardiologist did a few tests. We did a tilt table test, which is basically where you get put on a table at like a 60-degree angle, and it's supposed to monitor you until you inevitably pass out. And if you do pass out due to the angle, then it's likely that you have some sort of symptom or some sort of illness in the POTS or tachycardia or, you know, that sort of vein of sort of medical things. So I did the tilt table test and a few other tests, of course. Passed out very quickly, as I do. And then we did a few more tests and we got the answer of neurocardiogenic syncope. So we had answers. We were like, okay, good, that's fine. We were on a medication. I was on a medication, fludrocortisone, which was supposed to help, as it basically increases your sodium uptake, and it acts as an antidiuretic from what I know, which basically just helps your body retain liquid and increases the volume of blood that you have in your body, therefore increasing blood pressure overall. So we tried that. Unfortunately, it did nothing to help my situation. So he goes, well, there's one other medication it's not PBS approved. So in Australia we have the PBS, the prescription something. My brain is still not very good at the moment, so excuse my poor knowledge, but because I was at the hospital last night and I'm very sleep deprived and still kind of weird, but so I don't know all the facts today that I would normally know, but anyway, so we have the PBS here, and that's basically allows Australian people with Medicare cards to access prescriptions for a more affordable price than it would normally be due to the production cost, due to the importing cost and all that sort of thing. So there was another medication that we could try, but it wasn't PBS approved and there was very little data about it. And it would have been $300 for this medication that may or may not work. So we said, well, for the minor inconvenience that it is at the time, we won't worry about it. We'll just see how it goes. So we had the answer, we were okay, we continued on. he said, well, that's all right. It may or may not get better with age. Just increase your salt, increase your hydration, know when you feel the symptoms coming on, all of that good stuff, and just take care of yourself. So I did that, and it was like relatively okay. And it wasn't much of a, wasn't too bad. Then I moved up here in the great city of Toowoomba in Queensland, Australia. And pretty soon after starting university, it got worse again. I was passing out more frequently. I was getting really bad headaches. Like, I would feel fatigued all the time. It was just like, it was getting worse. We could tell it was getting worse. Palpitations. I had some chest pain now and then. Random bouts of sickness. It was just really weird. And it was sort of this cyclical thing that got worse for a few months, got better for a little bit, got worse, got better. Like, we just couldn't really figure it out. So this one day, I go back to a cardiologist in Toowoomba, and he tells me, he doesn't fully know what's up, but he says, stop any caffeine intake. So I was like, all right, well, I'll stop caffeine. He said, Powerade, salt, all that good stuff, but no caffeine. So I was like, all right. So we did the caffeine, no caffeine. Didn't really do anything until I accidentally had a mouthful out of someone else's coffee cup that was not my coffee cup and ingested caffeine. And what essentially happened was it did some not good stuff to me. My heart started racing. My chest started feeling really pained. I was clammy, there was a pain shooting down my arm, and my body was feeling really just staticky. And it felt like one of the fainting episodes I would have, but even worse and just even weirder. So I'm at work and they call the ambulance, of course. So we go to the hospital and they're not really sure what's up. The first hospital I went to, they thought it was acid reflux or just gastro, that sort of like a heartburn type thing. So they popped me a pantoprazole, also known as Somac, and they gave me they gave me some sort of morphine-based painkiller and sent me on my way. Well, my mum drove me home to her house about an hour away from the hospital, and at that stage, very quickly into the trip, I had thrown up, because it's very common for these sorts of strong painkillers to cause nausea, and I was already feeling nauseous, so I threw up, and the antacid didn't stay in my system. Needless to say, it was not heartburn. Get to the next day, back in the great city of Toowoomba, in possibly the best mall I've ever been in my life, Grand Central. I'm just having a good old time with my family, walking around, not doing anything too strenuous, just walking around. Still not feeling great, but I'm like, oh, it'll be fine. They weren't too worried, so it's fine. So, all of a sudden, I collapse on the floor. Same symptoms. Then they're like, okay, well, they rushed me off to a different hospital. Anyway, turns out it was basically a heart attack, and I died on the way to the hospital. They got me straight into a resus room, and they started doing everything they could. They did like the paddles, the defibrillator. They did like a whole bunch of stuff, and as you can see, I'm still alive, so it worked. So they said, yeah, this is your heart, something's happening. They were like, you need to look through more. So I got an echo, I got a few other things, and there was nothing abnormal structurally, nothing abnormal electrically with my heart. So we were very, very confused. Fast forward closer to midway through 2022, and I start passing out. But as I'm passing out, my eyelids start flickering, my body and face start convulsing, and I start getting these weird muscular twitches. I wake up confused and I lose memory. This is definitely not just a heart thing at this stage. So within the space of an hour, I'm at a lab in university, a lab class, and I pass out 2 times within the span of an hour. So they call the ambulance and they tell them the symptoms, and they think I have a seizure. They said I had a seizure. So we get an MRI and they do a few other tests to check, because they think this is a neurological thing now. So I get an MRI and there's massive cysts in my brain. So I've got massive cysts in my brain. So, okay, that must be what's causing it. So I get an appointment with a neurologist. I see the neurologist. He does an EEG, which is basically to test the electrical signals that your brain produces. And what a seizure is it's basically a misfiring of certain parts of your brain. It's like a short circuit in a way. It causes like random misfirings which cause convulsions and other sorts of things. So he did a test for like epilepsy and other seizure or fitting type disorders, which basically he stimulated me with strobing lights and other sorts of triggers that would usually cause seizures in patients with these sorts of disorders, like photosensitivity, that sort of thing. So he did that. He ruled out epilepsy and all those sorts of other things, and he said it couldn't have been a seizure. He said it was probably an extreme syncopal episode, which just means an extreme pass out. And he said what happened was probably that I didn't get to a safe position fast enough. I didn't lie down and control my blood pressure and heart rate fast enough, and therefore it got worse and something happened and it caused my body to kind of spaz out and my brain to be a bit weird. That's kind of what he said. But he didn't look at this MRI at all. To him, it meant absolutely nothing, and it was not important whatsoever. So we drive away from this appointment. We're like, okay, well, we still have no more answers. We kind of do at the same time. It's probably like me just passing out really badly. So we're on the way home and I get a call from a number that I recognize as the neurologist. He's very stressed out. He's telling me he just looked at the MRI and these are the biggest cysts he's ever seen in his lifetime and his career, which his career has been about 30 years long at this stage. He's like a 70-year-old man. So this is like big. So he's stressing out. He's like, okay, well, I've got to send you to a neurosurgeon. So he sends me for an appointment with a neurosurgeon, and I'm just waiting. I have to wait months for this appointment because he sends me to the best neurosurgeon, like that he was apparently best friends with, but I've recently found out that's total false. But anyway, he sends me to this neurosurgeon. So fast forward a few months, I'm still having these weird things happen and not sure what's going on at all. So keep seeing the cardiologist. The cardiologist says I'm fine cardiologically and I'm managing my pre-diagnosed condition well, so he doesn't need to see me. So he says as far as he's concerned, it's not a cardiological thing, it's a neurological thing. So I'm just waiting and waiting until we get to February of 2023. The 1st of February 2023 was my appointment to see the neurosurgeon. I go in and he's a very nice man. He was very good. He basically tells me that the cysts that I have are congenital arachnoid cysts, which are just cysts that form between the layers of your brain and the membrane, They're just a genetic thing that can happen due to mutation, or can be even just a thing that happens because your parents have got them or something like that. Either way, he said they're generally not harmful and they don't get better or worse. They just are there. So he said it's unlikely that this is causing the issue, and if it is, the surgery would be basically 100% chance of death. So it's not worth it, basically. And my dream in life is to become a neurosurgeon. So he said even if we could do a surgery, even if it was operable, it could send you having chronic seizures. It could put you out of a job in neurosurgery if it even was operable. Basically, not great news, but also not bad news. The cysts probably aren't that bad, and I don't need surgery. So happy days, kind of, but also we're back to square one. We don't have really many answers. But as of about maybe December 2022, things were kind of getting better. I had stopped with my weird convulsions and my mental fatigue and my confusion and my losing random amounts of short-term memory. I'd stopped that for a little bit, for like 2 months. And then it started again. A few days before the appointment, I passed out, but it was fine. It was one time pass out, that was once that day, and it didn't give me the regular symptoms of, confusion. It was just a faint, and it was not really that bad a faint either. Fast forward, yesterday, I'm hanging out with my friends at a board game type party. A few people are drinking, but we're all just kind of chilling. I'm sitting down, and I have 3 of these really bad episodes in one night. The first one was at 9 or 8:50, and the quote unquote seizure lasted for about 4 minutes. My eyelids were twitching, my face was scrunching, and my jaw was twitching. It was very stressful for them, and I put them through a lot of stress. I got up, I didn't know where I was stressed. I was ready to throw hands because I didn't know where I was, and I was very confused. I had lost about 7 hours of my day worth of memory at that time. Second time, 9:50 p.m, I have another episode, because it's not really a seizure, so I have another random thing. Lasts for about 4 minutes again. Same story. I wake up, don't remember where I am, don't remember getting there, really confused, really just anxious and weird. After the second time, I was feeling really weird, like just mentally really weird in my stomach, just feeling weird. And after the first 2 times, I'm like, it's happening again. Where I thought it was fixed, I thought my body kind of fixed itself for a bit there, but it's come back and it's happening again. So that stressed me out more, because now I have no answers, nothing to do about it, and I don't even know what's actually wrong with me. So they're very stressed out by the end of the second one, which is very reasonable. They wanted to send me to the hospital then and there after the second one, but I fought with them and I said no. We finally got to an agreement. If I had a third one, they would call an ambulance. About 11:30 at night, I have another one. After ingesting about 5 milliliters of vodka with a can of Coke, I have another episode. By the time I had gone to the hospital, they said the 5 milliliters won't have done anything, and it didn't even show up on a lot of the tests, so I had already metabolized the alcohol. So I had that alcohol, and about half an hour later at 11:30, I had my third episode. This one was the longest one. This one was right on the 4-minute mark. Sorry, 4 minute 15 seconds. And while I was out, they called the ambulance. I was feeling even worse after that. My friends were anxious. I was really anxious because I don't know what's happening to me now. I don't know what is wrong with me. And I don't know if this is something that's going to kill me, or if I'm going to be able to be a neurosurgeon, or like what my life will be. So I'm waiting for the ambulance to come. They gave me a drink of water. They were very good. They were taking care of me, like my friends, before the ambulance came. A few of them had first aid certificates, and they were all doing the best they could. You know, they all did what they should have done. There was nothing like they could have done better. I was up. They didn't move me. Like, they didn't get me up. They didn't tell me, like, they told me specifically not to stand up. I wanted to move, which is dumb because I know I shouldn't have, but they made me sit and just stay in a safe position. So they gave me water, they gave me a bit of sugar. Basically just took care of me. After I finished the water, I'm fiddling with the cup because I'm really stressed out. And it's not helping the situation because for me, who was already naturally predisposed to tachycardia and palpitations, I was getting even more of that. I was having a massive anxiety attack. Breathing was hard. I was trying not to cry in front of all my friends because, yeah, I don't know. And it was just a really stressful time. So I'm waiting for the ambulance to come. Then the ambulance comes. They're good. You know, they help me up into the ambulance. They take my, they do the stickers all over here, like ECG or EKG, something like that. They do my heart, blood pressure, the finger thing, like pulse rate, like all of that. They do all of my vitals basically to do with my heart. I tell them between there, which was a little bit out of town, and the hospital, I tell them all about my medical history and fill them in on everything, basically. I'm still really anxious by the time I get to the hospital. So, get to the hospital, I'm getting triaged by this paramedic is telling one of the receptionist nurse people, like, what's going on. It becomes very clear to me that they think I'm on drugs. So I'm an autistic man, and I don't deal with stress the best. So I was fiddling with this little miniature Volkswagen little car key thing that one of my friends had given me, and I was just very jittery and very anxious and kind of talking rapidly and very anxious. Anyway, so they assumed I was on drugs. So they asked me if I had taken anything illicit. I said no, of course, which I hadn't, except for I had nothing illicit. They asked me if I took drugs, and I said no, except for prescription medication, which I'm on, which is, just normal stuff, like an antidepressant and a broad spectrum antibiotic for cystic acne. But anyway, so they did a urine test, they did a blood test, both of which came back very normal, but then they wanted to make sure. So they do this very long other blood test, which tests for anything in the book, and it's one of the most sensitive tests that can be a thing. So they do this test, but it takes a long time, and they weren't going to see me until the test came back because they were certain that I was on drugs. So I'm waiting in the hospital. My mum has arrived, so this is more than an hour later. I've got a cannula in my arm from where they took the blood and pumped me with a little bit of saline, but they are just not seeing me until this really long blood test comes back. I realise I'm not going to get any answers in an emergency department. That's not what they're there for, Emergency departments are supposed to help emergency situations, either life-threatening or not, but something that they're supposed to help where they can. Emergency departments are not necessarily an investigation department in terms of, a health condition or something. So the wait time on the little screen thing is over 15 hours to see a doctor at this stage. So I just go up to the counter and I say, hey, is it okay if I get this cannula taken out? I can't really wait around because I had plans for today and I had things to do, and my mum had to work this morning. So yeah, I didn't want her waiting around either. So they take the cannula out and I ask just to be sure how my blood test and urine test went, just in case there were drugs causing this time. Of course there was nothing. There was no, so my full blood count was fine, which is pretty normal for me though. My full blood count is normally fine. My urine was good, like everything was normal. They were still waiting on the Chem 20 test, is what they did. But they said my GP will be able to access the data on that. So now, at this stage, I'm just here, no answers. I've got to see my GP on Friday, and I'm going to get another referral to a different neurologist. I'm probably going to go back to the cardiologist if she thinks that's a good idea. And I'm just going to see what my GP thinks I should do. Hopefully I can find out what's going on, because it's still really stressful. And I'm absolutely wrecked. Mentally and physically, like, I'm just tired. Last night was long. It was a little bit... it was just not a fun night. After that, it was hard to know that it has come back fully and it's getting bad again. And I will be honest, it was a little bit hurtful that they thought I was on drugs. But I mean, I kind of understand it was a Friday night. I'm a 18-year-old man, so yeah, probably drugs are probably statistically likely for me at that time. But yeah, so that was a little bit hurtful. But so yeah, this is basically why there's a war, why I'm having a war on the healthcare system, because I just didn't get treated. They didn't even care enough to tell me not to go, because they thought it was just drugs and I'll be fine. So they were like, oh, okay, well, he'll just go home and like he'll sleep the drugs off or something. So they didn't really care. So yeah, that's the whole thing, is like all the people I've seen. One cardiologist, he had the answers, but he didn't. The neurologist, he didn't even look at my MRI. The other cardiologist went off what the first cardiologist said, and he decided he didn't need to see me anymore. The neurosurgeon was good, but he only had the data from the neurologist and the MRI to go off. And so, like, this is where we're at. Like, I've gotten that many different contrary opinions. No one can tell me what is going on. I've spent so much money, so much time on these appointments. I've driven hours away even. Toowoomba is a pretty big place, but I've driven to larger places to see hopefully better people. I've spent money on private hospitals and I don't know, where has it really gotten me? And that's what this war is all about, is I don't know, we need to do a bit better. The healthcare system is good, but wait times are still too long. appointment times you have to wait months for, even in private sector. Like discrimination based on certain stereotypes or based on certain behaviors just because they don't understand. And for me, my story is a whole lot easier than most other people's. You know, I'm a white straight man, so of course I'm not going to get discriminated that much in life. If I wasn't, it probably would have been worse for me. They probably would have had, I don't know, maybe had the police there or security watching me or something. So, I mean, it's a little bit hypocritical for me to complain because the only thing that I was discriminated on was my autism. But I mean, that's just where the issue lies, is the healthcare system needs to do better. We're supposed to help people, and that's where I want to go to. I want to help people, but we need to do better. And as a society, we need to do better. And I really need some answers. And I really hope that I can figure this out. But we'll see what happens. And that's it.